Hello and welcome to Fox Sports Lab AFL in this great week for Tasmanian football and football in general. I'm Ben Dixon, your host. With me, the greatest goal kicker of all time. He told me to say that. Jason Dunstall and the stats guru, Paton. Welcome, gentlemen.
Still recovering from Adelaide getting beaten last week. I thought I'd dragged one back and I got rolled at the death knell.
You did everything right until Al texted through and said, "You're home, Chief," and then they just fell over. Let's touch on Tassie quickly. Paton, I'm coming to you because I played in Tasmania many a time. Give us the lowdown on what teams love Tasmania.
Yeah, I thought I'd just have a quick look, given that everyone presumably is going to be going down there to play some games from around 2028. And the Hawks, we know, have played there the most, 79 times, and they've got a 71% winning record, which is pretty good. So they'd be backing themselves in to obviously enjoy the trip. There's only three other teams that have a positive win-loss record in Tasmania: Geelong, Sydney and North. Who just get over the line. And then there's heaps of teams that really don't go well at all down there. Carlton's never won a game, Richmond 0-3, Gold Coast 0-7, and Collingwood has never played a home and away game in Tasmania. So
well, if they go there, they'll Houdini it once again, no doubt.
Yeah.
All right, Chief, I'm going to talk Tigers because one win, a draw after 7 rounds is absolutely disgraceful.
Yep.
We all had them in the 8 or just out of the 8, but are you finding room in the bottom 4 for the Tigers this year?
I don't know about bottom 4, but they're done. They are done, the Tigers. There's no doubt about it. You can't salvage your season from here. They're going like bastards. Their ball movement is rubbish. They can't score. Remember how they used to be so good at turning it over and then going bang, they'd just flood forward, they'd run, they'd score with, at ease when they wanted to. Not now. The way they're moving the ball inside 50 has been terrible. They're missing Lynch. I mean, he's obviously a huge part of the structure and straightens them up going forward. I think Nankervis has been a big loss as well. But no, they got some serious problems the way they're moving the ball forward, Al.
And I'm going to quickly jump in because Dimmer after the game in his press conference goes, "I don't have the answers." Al, have you got the answers?
Well, I think I wish I did as a Richmond supporter. It's pretty hard to watch at the moment. But what's really killing them, as you mentioned, is just their ball use and their basic skills. I mean, they were the highest scoring team last year. This year they're the 3rd worst, and their kicking for goal accuracy is the 3rd worst in the comp. So when they get chances, they're not taking them. But it's happening all over the field. They've got the 18th kicking efficiency in the league, and they're number 1 for clangers. So it's really hurting you when you can't convert when you get your opportunities. And then at the other end of the ground, if we name names, their worst clanger offenders this year: Marlon Pickett, Tim Taranto, at least he gets plenty of the ball. Shea Bolton, you don't mind that if he's trying something. But then you've got Noah Bolter and Liam Baker, and these are the guys who are supposed to be setting you up, taking the sort of safer option coming out of the back line. If you're kicking it straight to the opposition, you got no chance.
It's funny, isn't it? We all got bullish when they recruited Taranto and Hopper. We thought, they're going to go somewhere, Richmond. But it's the flow-on effect of picking those two. All of a sudden, Bolton's not spending as much time in the middle, and he's getting the same sort of numbers, but he's not having the same impact, if that makes sense. And Dustin Martin, you don't have the luxury of swinging him into the midfield to get him involved in the game when you need to, because these other two guys, they're probably the best players for Richmond this year. So if I said to you, who's had a great year for Richmond outside of Taranto and Hopper?
Couldn't tell you.
The names don't spring to mind, so that tells you how ordinary a season they're having.
But in Timmy Taranto and Jacob Hopper, Dimmy would say, "Come in, we're in the window, we're still going to contend." Where do they find themselves now, Al?
Right now, they've got their fingers on the windowsill and someone's just slammed the window on them, Dico.
Fair enough.
Sorry, Al, didn't mean to jump in. I just thought I'd...
Well, they're there for 7 years, so I think Richmond sees them as part of the sort of transition when they phase out some of these older guys and bring in some of the youth, and hopefully those guys will be around for when that next wave comes through. But yeah, it might be a couple of tough years before that happens.
Well, you said who jumped out after Shea Bolton and the like. Well, Trent Cotchin's a good discussion point because he's 5 from 300. Now, it's a matter of, you said they're gone, they're cooked, they've shut the window, it's slammed on the fingers. Do you get him to 300 and then put him away and say, righto, is that Dimmer's call or is that Trent's call? You've been in this position. You threw me over the line for 200.
No, well, they're both such great leaders and have made brilliant contributions to the club, so they'll get him to 300. There's no problems there. And then I think Dimmer and Koch will probably sit down and work out, well, am I having an impact? What's best for the club? What role do you want me to play? They'll work it out, but he'll be a deserved 300 game player at that.
Is he playing his role?
Well, he's kicked 1 goal, 1. They're sort of trying to use him as a half forward. I don't know if that's quite working, but yeah, I think, for everything that he's done for the club, he deserves to get to 300. At the moment, that if he plays every game from here, that'll be against Fremantle in Perth. So maybe they'll rest him for one along the way to get him that at the G, and then, I think they'd probably maybe see where the Tigers are at and whether it's worth going from there.
That was Al speak for no.
Yeah. Just quickly, when do you move a coach on?
When he's not getting the message through to the players. Again, I think Dimmer will sit. If they go no good for the rest of this year, he'll sit down at the end of the year, and I think they'll have that discussion.
All right, that's our deep dive on the Tigers, who are struggling to stay relevant in 2023. Jason, let's look at the Blues and the Lions and whether Charlie Curnow can fulfil my prediction of kicking 100 goals for the year. I'm going to go to you because you only kicked 1,200 of them. Do you think I'm on the money?
I hope he can kick 100, but I wouldn't be holding my breath. I just think the way the game's played, and they're going to come up against some of the top teams before. You can't keep beating up on West Coast every week, and we need to see whether the Blues are the real deal.
Oh, I think they're the real deal. They showed it last week against the Eagles. I was waiting for it. Al, where are the Blues at? Because I'm bullish about them and have been for a long time.
Well, I think there were some concerns coming into last week, and I mean, you can only play who's up against you, but I don't know if that told us a whole lot. And the Lions, I think, are travelling really nicely at the moment. They've got a good record against Carlton, winning 6 of their last 7, and a good record at Marvel. They won 5 of their last 6 there. So, I think I'll back him in to get over the Blues this week.
And what about your mate Joe Danaher and Eric Hipwood?
They're going okay. They're hanging in there. I'm worried about the outs. I think Zorko and Rich are big outs, but I love the roles that. So Jack Payne's come in. I think he's had an outstanding year. Players like Wilmot and McKenna have come in and had an impact for them. So I just think they're getting a little bit of momentum, Brisbane. And
you touched on it, Al. 2-2 on the road this year, the Lions.
Yeah, I think they may be sneaking up on a few people. And a quirky little Joe Danaher stat, if you want one, he's kicked at least 2 goals in his past 6 Friday night Marvel games.
Oh, let's hope they sneak up on the Blues, Al.
All right, Charlie for 100. I'm sticking fat with that one. Al and Jason are with the Lions, so it looks like I'm going alone with the Blues. The Suns are shooting for their 3rd straight win on Saturday. Al, do you give them a hope against the Demons?
Well, they had a good win last week, but they did come up against a team that they enjoy playing against historically. They've had a few good wins over Richmond over the journey. Melbourne has won their last 10 against Gold Coast, so a bit of a different story, and I think they'll be a bit tougher opposition up there in Queensland.
Do you think Noah Anderson can match it through the likes with Oliver in the midfield?
Yeah, Oliver Petrarca playing very, very well, but I love the way Noah Anderson's going about his business. He is just getting plenty of it, and he's got some good vision. Tries to create, tries to make things happen, and he's carrying a big load because with Tuke Miller out, things are a little bit light on in the midfield. What
about the goal kickers, Al, in this game? Because that's what we're going to look at. Cade, Chandler?
Yeah, well, he's a player that I really like. He's doing great things for my Supercoach team at the moment, but he's kicked at least 1 goal in every game he's played this year. So, I really like what he's doing there for the D's as a mature age sort of pickup.
Took him a long time to get into the lineup. He's been dominating in the VFL for a long time, so good to see him getting his go.
All right, Chief, you'd excuse for thinking the Giants were allergic to politicians. They hate playing in Canberra. They just can't win at all. Do you see them getting over the Bulldogs on Saturday?
This is a tough game, this one. I've gone for the Bulldogs because no other reason other than I don't think GWS are going particularly well, even though they had a good win against Sydney last week. There's no home away from home at Canberra. I mean, what are they? They've lost their last 8 there. 8. I mean, what's the point of playing away games somewhere unless you're getting the biggest bundle of money you could possibly wrap your arms around, because it's not helping them at all. But I just think this might be a tight one, and maybe the Bullies sneak home, Al.
Yeah, well, the Dogs have a good record, won their past 4 against the Giants. One to keep an eye on this week, I reckon, is the Bont, obviously flying this year. But Adam Kingsley hinted that they might have a plan for him this weekend, maybe a Harry Perryman tag or sort of a cooler kind of role. So he might have a bit of a tougher week this week, but I'm still backing in the Doggies.
All right, fans, well, prepare yourself for, guess what, snow, because they're going to try and break their Canberra curse.
You know it's a better betting app when you've got stats and insights for every major game and race. Plus expert opinions from the best minds in the game, all in the palm of your hand. That's better. Your chances are you're about to lose.
Let's look at the Port Adelaide-Essendon game in Adelaide. Chief, can the Bombers reverse their slide out of the top 8 in recent weeks?
Yeah, I know the form doesn't look great on paper for the Bombers, but even though they weren't in the contest against the Cats, they still kicked 100 points against a good defence. So I wouldn't be sitting there saying it's all doom and gloom for the Bombers. However, they're coming up against a team that's playing really good football at the moment. Probably snuck under the guard of a few of us, myself included. So can't tip the Bombers over there, but I think it's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, Port have won their past 5 against Essendon, so that you'd back that in again. And over the past month, they've had the meanest defence in the AFL, averaging only 66 points against, so it might be tough for the Bombers to kick a winning score.
Intriguing last year, 2-5 they started Port, now they're 5-2, so that's what Kenny wanted. All right, Collingwood plays Sydney at the MCG on Sunday. Al, surely the Magpies don't need anything Houdini-like to get over the line.
Well, these two teams haven't, you look at record at certain venues, they haven't actually played at the MCG since 2013. So
what?
Makes it hard to put a line through the form. The Swans have
But they got a good
last
record, Sydney, against them recently.
Yeah, they do. But a lot of them in Sydney, I think they played a few times out at Homebush.
Yep.
So it makes it a little bit tricky. But the Pies, it's very hard to tip against them, even when they're 4 goals down halfway through the last quarter.
Well, we're talking about someone who played in the grand final last year. You worried about the Swannies, Chief?
A little bit. They had good momentum early in the season. The young players were the ones carrying them. That's worn off a little bit. We know they've got some injuries and they're still trying to get some players back and get games back under the belt of Buddy Franklin and the like. So, yeah, they're going through a tough period at the moment, but any John Longmire team you don't write off, so they'll bounce back at some stage.
All right, well, this doesn't happen often, but we're all on the same page here, tipping the Power and the Magpies. Chief, it's time to revisit our round 7 tips, and once again you snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, tipping the Crows. How does it feel?
Not great. In fact, I'm devastated. So it's taken me a whole week to get over. You know, when you find that tip, you think, I'm going to drag one back against everyone here. And I was home. They had that game shot to bits. They should have been 6 or 8 goals up. But as we all know, poor goal kicking is poor football. Damn you, Crows, you cost me. They should have been, mate, they should have been home.
I've never seen him so passionate. He walks the corridors here going, who did you tip in this game? Like, you are following it like you wouldn't believe.
When I was trying to drag one back on Alan, I thought I had it, and then...
I conceded.
Yeah.
No, you did. You conceded on text and it went south after that.
Didn't concede on the total of tips, though, did you? You've gone one further ahead.
Albeit, though, Adelaide have been one of the most informed teams this year. Yeah. Do you give them a hope at GMHBA Stadium?
I do give them a hope. I can't tip them because there's a ridiculous record down there that sways it in the Cats' favour. So they've won 15 of their last, or 16 of their last 17 down there. And the last 12 times the Crows have been there, Cats have accounted for them. So it's very difficult to say Adelaide's actually going to win. But I think they're going to be competitive. I like the hard brand of football they're playing. They've got some skillful players that have moved into the midfield. But I think we're also seeing over the last month, Al, that the Cats train is starting to get up and running, isn't it?
Well, yeah, absolutely. They're the highest scoring team in the comp over the past 4 rounds. But they're also conceding some scores. Essendon kicked 100 points against them last week, and the Crows do have some firepower down there, when especially when Rochelle and Rankin and these guys start lighting it up. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Tom Stewart, one player I'll be watching, and I think Matthew Nix has even put this on the agenda already, that he has a great record at GMHBA, had 40 disposals and I think 16 marks against Adelaide there last year. So, I think they'll be trying to put the clamps on him. I don't know, Ben Keys did a good job on Nick Dacos last week. Not sure if he's the right man for Tom Stewart, but I think they will have a plan for him.
Did you see what was going to happen with Geelong? I mean, at 0-3, they looked to be in dire straits.
Then they played Hawks and West Coast.
Played them back into form, didn't they? But all of a sudden, it's like we've flipped a coin and they're playing like they were last year. Did you see it coming?
Oh, I didn't, but the GMHBA Stadium against the Swannies was the switch. I mean, 93 points, but everyone goes, oh yeah, they're entitled to that down there. Not entitled at all. Their offence is amazing. So you're all in now with the Cats?
Yes.
This week, yes.
Took me a while to come around, but I'm back on.
All right, Al, let's talk Kangaroos, because the heat's on Clarko, believe it or not. He's got a young team, albeit he's fielded what would you say, a more experienced team in terms of age over the last couple of weeks, but the Saints, they're hard to beat. Can you see them getting over them?
Well, no. In short, I mean, the Saints had a loss last week that they would think maybe was one that got away at Marvel, so I don't think that'll happen 2 weeks in a row. Ross will have them up for this one.
Where did you have the Kangaroos at the beginning of the year?
Second last.
Right.
Yeah. I had Hawthorn last and got hammered for it.
People were sitting there saying, well, it's time for the Kangaroos to prove, and they've got Alistair Clarkson there, but the list hasn't changed much. They've got a couple of good young players coming through, but it lacks depth, it lacks class. So I just don't understand why people were thinking that Kangaroos might improve a bit this year. I was a little caught off guard by the start that the Saints had to the season. That's exciting though. I love what Ross is doing from a defensive perspective, so it's very difficult to see North getting through them to kick a winning score. But Did you have the Saints in your 8?
No, I didn't have them anywhere near that. I think I had them 12th or something around that. But are they going to be able to sustain that for a top 4 spot, Al?
Yeah, I think they can. They probably wouldn't mind getting a bit of percentage this week. That's something that they haven't had a real big win, I don't think. So one thing to watch in the mid, I mean, we saw last week, Petrarca and Oliver just absolutely racked it up against the North Melbourne Mids, and last year against the Kangaroos, Jack Sinclair, Brad Hill and Jade Gresham all had 30 plus touches, and I really like what Jack Sinclair is doing this year. He was All-Australian last year, and he's definitely backing it up. He's having a fantastic season.
If you like the Saints for the finals, you should be confident because they've got a really good draw coming up. They'll rue dropping that one to Port. I mean, Port were good last week, but St Kilda just butchered the ball going inside 50 in the 4th term. But they've got themselves in a really good position and got some very winnable games coming.
Don't you love the guy on the panel that's never played a game? He says, Ross Lyon will just be looking for percentage this week. Have you ever sat in front of a coach and he's gone, right, boys, we've got a percentage boosting game?
I can hear Clarko grinding his teeth right about now.
All right, let's quickly look at all of our tips. And Alan the Chief are on the same page this week. But guess what? I'm going out on a limb as usual.
The limb's going to snap.
With the Blues to beat the Lions on Friday night. And I think the Hawks will cause the upset over there in Perth with the Dockers. Lock it in. That's our show for this week. Thanks, Jason. And thank you, Al. Outstanding work from you guys. Make sure you subscribe below and follow us on socials. And we'll see you next week.
You know it's a better betting app when you've got stats and insights for every major game and race. Plus expert opinions from the best minds in the game, all in the palm of your hand. That's better. Your chances are you're about to lose.